Welcome to Video 2, Japanese Culture in Western American Music. In the first part of the series, we talked about culture and Japan, but this video will combine that into music. We have seen many artists throughout the years combine other cultures into their music videos, songs, and content. Some artists have been vocal about their love of Japanese culture, like Ariana Grande. She has multiple tattoos referencing Japan, like her 7 rings reference on her hand, and Chihiro from Spirited Away on her forearm. Her music video for 7 Rings was also inspired by Japanese culture. Things like this bring up the topic of cultural appreciation or cultural appropriation. So, what is the difference? Well, cultural appropriation, according to Britannica.com, is the adoption of a certain language, behavior, clothing, or tradition belonging to a minority culture or social group by a dominant culture or group in a way that is exploitative, disrespectful, or stereotypical. This basically meaning that a typically dominant culture like the West can pocket off of a smaller or oppressed culture to sell, market, and perform in a way that benefits them. This, of course, is without consequence for the majority group, even if the minority group faces backlash for the exact same thing. Like, for example, Gwen Stefani, who has been vocal about her love of Harajuku and their fashion. By itself, it would have been fine, but the performative aspect comes from her backup dancers, who are dressed in stereotypical clothes, and she keeps them as her silent entourage. If you would like to know more, I suggest you check out this YouTuber that I linked below. She gives an in-depth analysis on Gwen Stefani and Harajuku fashion, and then she also has other places you can go to for more information. Moving on to cultural appreciation. This is when one recognizes, respects, and values diverse traditions, beliefs, and practices of different groups. They want to learn and are willing to listen to honor other cultures and traditions without personal gain or exploiting another culture. For example, Harvey from XG has been known to have black teeth, which was a tradition in Japan during the Edo period of 1603 to 1868 as a sign of maturity, beauty, and civilization. Although she is not fully Japanese, she is still a Japanese woman who is exploring her culture and identity. Netizens, if you don't know, are users of the internet. This name comes from the group of people online who use the internet as a forum to express their views on society. These people are just actively online and engage in uncensored online discussions politically and socially. So what does any of this have to do with music, right? That's what you're asking? Well, Westerners or Americans are part of a majority group. So when we talk about music or influences, there's a different type of understanding when they take or borrow or even steal cultures besides one of their own. Can you explain what hegemonic mimicry is?
Hegemonic mimicry is a term used in post-colonial studies. And it was a phenomenon that, it's noticed that whenever colonial people, they take over other people, the people who are colonized mimic the culture of the people who took them over. But then, they copy, but then there's always something a little bit different. And so they actually make an imperfect copy. And that's where you have the really great parts of culture. You see that? And how, maybe like, for example, maybe the best way to explain it is after the war, American soldiers were stationed all over Japan. And, people started copying American fashions, American foods or so, but something slightly different was changed. The people used the culture of the people who took them over as a means of resistance. And so, you'll see that a lot. That whenever someone's colonized, they will actually start copying the colonizers, but not exactly. And it doesn't necessarily mean they loved colonizers. It's often a survival strategy.
Music is a big part of culture and reaches many different audiences from all over the world. The term J-pop itself is a fusion of Japanese pop music, and it became an umbrella term for all Japanese music, including rock, hip-hop, and electronic music. The term caught popularity in the 1990s due to the mainstream influence of sharing inspiration with the West.
My name is Kalani Anderson. I am a student here at University of Hawaii West Oahu in my senior year. I guess for work, besides being a student, I work part-time as a server, and then I'm also a DoD intern with a contracting company in downtown Honolulu. I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
What Western artists do you currently listen to?
Right now, I've been listening to a lot of Jade, She used to be a member of the girl group Little Mix, and they've now broken up, and so they're all doing like their own solo adventures. And so Jade Thirlwell, who now goes by Jade, she's been gearing up for her own solo projects. I've been listening to a lot of her solo music lately. Her music is high energy, it's fun. I can relate to a lot of the kind of topics that she sings about. It's nice to kind of listen to music like that for myself personally, because it makes me feel more capable of completing the semester.
Do you listen to J-pop?
I listen to a little bit of J-pop, yes, I would say. I feel like a lot of the J-pop that I listen to is older J-pop. It always seems a bit more nostalgic, a bit more kind of melancholy almost, sometimes a little bit more emotional compared to Western music. Of course, I don't know what they're saying. I just listen because I like the sound of the music and like the overall expression and the feelings that I get from listening to J-pop sometimes. It's different than Western music, for example, or it's not as like hardcore sounding as like something like electric, like K-pop, for example.
Do you think language represents a barrier in music?
Absolutely not. I listen to a lot of music that's not just in English. J-pop, K-pop, Spanish music. You know, some of my favorite artists are like Karol G and Becky G and Bad Bunny, for example. And they don't speak English. Their music has maybe some English words in them, but they're in Spanish or they're in Korean, or J-pop, they're in Japanese. And I don't know what they're talking about, but I can still get a reaction internally to what I'm listening to. Sometimes, and of course, sometimes I'm misinterpreting what I'm feeling. It might be they're singing about something really happy, but the music sounds really sad, but I'm still able to connect with the music nonetheless, even though I don't speak the language. But I don't think on first listen or just listening to music, not being able to speak or understand the words that are being sung isn't a true barrier. I think it's an excuse to not listen to certain types of music because, oh, I don't speak Spanish, oh, I don't understand Japanese, I'm not going to listen to J-pop because of it. But I think that's an excuse not to, and if that's not your thing, sure, but I think that's an excuse not to try listening to new types of music and new genres as well.
Have you noticed any Western artists collaborating with or sampling J-pop music?
Yes, The Weeknd actually. He sampled, I can't remember the name of it, but there was definitely a J-pop song, like an older one, I want to say from maybe the 80s or 90s, and it was Out of Time, I believe, was the song on his album. Beautiful. At the time, I recognized almost a sample, but I just couldn't put two and two together when I first heard his album for the first time. But then I was going through my playlists a couple weeks ago, actually, and I came across the original sample, and I was like, oh wait, that's in the Weeknd song. So yeah, The Weeknd's a prime example of someone that uses J-pop in their music.
How do you feel about the growing fusion of J-pop and Western pop styles in the music industry today?
I think it's bound to happen. The world is on your phone, It's bound to happen that there's going to be that cross-cultural pairing between J-pop and Western music, and we're going to see more and more similarities in both types of music. I definitely think that J-pop artists and music have an influence on American culture and artists. An example that comes to mind, it might not necessarily be J-pop music necessarily, but definitely Japanese culture and aesthetics, is artists such as Gwen, Stefani, and Nicki Minaj, who back in the day pulled strongly on like Harajuku and Japanese culture. Even modern examples of Megan Thee Stallion, she loves anime, and she probably does to some extent listen to J-pop, and you can see that in her music, where she has, I think, a song with a Japanese artist, and it's a bilingual rapping track. And so you definitely see those influences from Japanese J-pop artists into Western musicians.
If you could introduce one J-pop song to a Western audience, which one would it be and why?
I would introduce, I believe it's called Stay With Me, to a Western audience, just because when I hear the song, it just sounds so summery and light and ethereal and happy and just good vibes. And I feel whenever I listen to that song, no matter the time of year, it just puts me in a really good place mentally. And so that's definitely the song that I would choose to first introduce people to J-pop.
How do you think Western and J-pop artists can learn from each other in terms of creativity and performance?
I feel that a lot of J-pop artists put a lot of emphasis into the way they perform. They don't necessarily just stand there. And you see a lot of that now, I feel, with some modern American Western musicians and artists as well. But I feel specifically like in J-pop, you see a lot more like dancing and that kind of movements on stage to keep people entertained, but also because it's just culturally so different. And I'm not necessarily saying that like a Western artist could take aspects of Japanese culture and put it into their music, but just what they're inspired by and how they write music and the type of instruments that they use or the way they choose to compose their music, it would be probably a little bit different of a process compared to Western music styles. And I think if they could learn from each other, it'd be interesting to see how that would change each style of music in both J-pop and in Western music.
Who would you recommend for people who are getting into the J-pop genre or want to start?
I believe her name is Sakurako Ohara. Like a lot of the J-pop that I like to listen to, her music is very just summery and good vibes and overall just kind of chill to listen to. And so if you like R&B and you like soft pop, that is kind of the introductory artist I would suggest first, just because she's one of my personal favorites, and I think a lot of people can easily digest and listen to her music and won't find it too much or too even foreign. Like, yes, it's in Japanese, but I think people could appreciate especially the melodies and the overall sound landscape of her music.
Do you have any final words?
I would say just listen to whatever music makes you not necessarily happy, but triggers a reaction in you, whether it is happy or it is sad, or it is from K-pop, or it's from J-pop, or it's from whatever type of genre of music from wherever around the world. I don't think music is bound geographically or bound by a language. I think if you like the music and you can connect with it on some level, why not listen to it? Music can express a lot of feelings internally and externally, and I think it's a beautiful medium that we as people create.
Thank you, Kalani, for talking to us about Western music with Japanese culture. And with that said, our second video comes to an end, and I'll see you in the third episode, which will be about movies in the West and in Japan.